Okay.
Welcome to the A2 Show with Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson, bringing you the trends and topics that affect our lives the most: business, politics, fitness, family, and finance. With over 50 plus years of combined business experience and over $1 billion in revenue generated, your hosts have a unique gift for seeing many steps ahead where others do not. They bring their unfiltered, contrarian views to the show every week to help you win in business and in life.
Welcome to the A2 Show, my man. We are talking today about the business leaders and entrepreneurs that have inspired us the most over the last 2 decades and why. And I think the takeaway ideally here will be who inspires you. And if nobody does, you might want to find somebody, because success leaves clues. Indeed. And studying those who came before you, what does it do? Creates speed, condenses time. Right? If you can learn from someone else's mistake, if you can leverage someone else's experience, you're buying speed and condensing time. So what could take 5 years could take 5 months. What could take 10 years could take 2 months, right? That's what we're going to talk about here today is who inspired us the most and why and how to find your inspiration as well.
Yeah, I thought it would be a fun topic for us to cover today, something different. And it was sort of inspired by the idea of the original quote that I read 20 years ago that was, "Leaders are readers."
And readers are leaders, by the way. It goes both ways. Did you know that? And did you get the second part of it?
Yep.
And I tell this to my kids too. Leaders are readers and readers are leaders.
Absolutely. And I know that technology has changed a lot over the last 20 years. And, I think you're a prime example of that, where you love to listen to audiobooks and podcasts on the move.
How about you?
I'm still more of a reading guy, but
physical. I'm actually both, Aaron, to be honest. I'm 50-50, because you and I are sort of like old school, new school. We grew up like as the internet was starting, but yet we had enough foundation of non-internet. So there's a little bit of that physical element to me and you. And also,
I think
of course,
a lot of people are jealous of that, because I think you're Gen X as well. So we grew up where you had to do everything the old school hard way, but then we were the only generation that was introduced to the internet. So we're the only ones that have ever straddled both sides.
I'm so thankful for it, Aaron, to be honest.
Super thankful.
I'm like, I look at my kids, your kids are a little older. I don't know if Soleil, she's 20 something years old.
Mm-hmm.
She, I think, pretty much was all internet, if I had to guess, or maybe she caught the tail end of when it started. But our young kids, like, it's been all digital.
Yep.
I had a funny story last night. Actually, it's so funny you brought this up. I don't know how it came up, but I was talking to my daughter and my son in the kitchen. We were cooking, and I was like, "Do you guys know what a fax machine is?"
It's funny.
And they were like,
I'm talk about
what?
Fax machines today.
You were too?
I'm going to talk about fax machines today.
Are you really? That's I didn't even know that. But they're like a fax machine. I'm like, before the internet and before email, if people had to send messages that couldn't wait in the mail, picture your printer. You would write something, or you would type something and print it and then send it through. You dial a phone number and send the paper through the printer fax machine looking device. And then that message would arrive in paper on the other side. They looked at me like I had 10 heads.
It's actually quite a remarkable technology when you think about it now.
It's more interesting to me than email. Email seems easier of a technology to make happen than fax. Seems like, man, that was like, how do you get the paper to do that, right? But email digital is easy compared to, right?
Well, and you grew up in the Wall Street world. I mean, how important was fax technology in the world you grew up in?
Well, it was all there was, Aaron. In fact, one of my business leaders that I'm going to mention today when we open up this conversation, shockingly, wait for it, still only prefers to be communicated with by fax in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's like the last guy standing. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but yeah, it's interesting times. I think the point you were trying to make was the fact that most people are not really reading today. They're skimming and they're surfing the internet. And I think we're all guilty of it. I find myself doing it at times as well, where I'm looking for information, I'm skimming, but I'm not really immersed in the information. And I think the immersion of getting into a book or getting into a course or a training, that's going to be the difference maker for you. And hopefully what you'll take away today will be a little bit of how you can go back to how we used to study. We used to study, right? We didn't used to skim and scan. We used to actually immerse ourselves in content and study.
Well, and I think the benefit to doing that, which I think we've got away from as a culture over the last 5 to 6 years, is when you're attempting to learn something and your only consumption vehicle is digital.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be distracted from what you're doing. Some notification, some multitasking, terrible, some bouncing around, and you're not really consuming and internalizing the information the way that we used to, where there were no distractions. You were just reading.
I was just about to say distraction free, right? Distraction free.
It's distraction free. So I'll get us kicked off today. Okay. We were talking about this before the show today. We're like, oh, well, who inspired you? Who inspired you? And our people were very different, and they're different in a good way. They're different for different reasons.